Hello friends, my name is Habib. Today we're going to learn how to make a page entering animation using HTML and CSS. So first, open up your browser and search for pen.new. This is going to create a new CodePen. Now this CodePen is just going to, So first we create a H1, like always. And then I'll create a H2. And now for the H1 and the H2, H1, H2, I'm going to center them. Now, this isn't really necessary. I'm just doing this so that, there'll be something here. I'm also going to make the H1 to be bigger. Smaller. And then I'll go to color picker. And then I'll choose a light green color for the background. Copy the code. So the body background color. I'll set it to the hex code. Oh, no, I cannot save. I forgot. And now for the H1 and the H2. Now for the H1, for the H1 and the H2, I'm going to give them a dark color, paste the hex code, and then I'm going to give them a text shadow, a 0, 0, 0, 0, RGB is 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.5. Optimal. Yeah, I'll move it down by 10 pixels. Then I'll make the text darker. I can make this bigger. Yeah, that looks fine, I guess. So now that we've done all these things, it's time to create the actual, page entering animation. Hello, lorem ipsum amet dollar or lor. So first, I'll create a div, and this div is going to be on top of every single page. So I'll situate it on top, and then I'll give it an ID of A. Not a very good ID. So anyways, so I'll select the A tag, and I want there to be. And then I want there to be like a circle. And so how the effect is going to go is that there's like a circle. And then the circle is going to get bigger. And then, the circle is going to get bigger. Circle gets bigger and bigger until, the circle disappears. Yeah, you know what I mean. So, how do we do that? Well, since I don't want to use any overcomplicated method, I'll just use a radial gradient. It's the background radial gradient. So I have to give it the colors crimson. Wait, no. I set the background to be the gradient. The color is black. White, just to test it out. And then I'll make it to cover the entire screen. You can get a width of 100 SVW and a height of 100 SVH. And I want to set its position to absolute so that, you know, I want to set its position to absolute so that it can cover everything. Absolute. This is about to be height. I can't believe I didn't spell height properly. Anyways, I can do this, make space so that it will, you know, be set the pen. So now I want it to be black, and then the rest is going to be transparent. Transparent, then black. There we go. But I wanted to cover all of the screen. Also, I'll set its position to fixed, and I'll set its top to 0 and its right to 0 so that it can cover all of the screen. Now what Wizard Fix does, it basically makes it so that even if we scroll down or we scroll up, no matter where we scroll, it will always be in the same position. So, like if we scroll down, it will always be the same position. It will never be able to go out of the screen. So yeah. But I don't want this smooth gradation. I want it to be kind of blocky. So I'll set it to a circle first. I want the gradient to be a circle, not an oval. I'll set the transparent to 50%, the black to 50%. Now this is a trick I use. Now if we set both of these to 50%, like if I set this to 10% and I set both of them to, if I set both of them's percentage to the same value, it is not going to have a smooth transition. It's going to be, you know, kind of blocky. And now I'll set the Z index to 100 to make sure it's on top of everything. Now, if we set this to 0%, it's going to consume the entire screen. And if we set these to 100%, then we'll not be able to see it anymore. Oh wait, 0% transparent, 10%. Yeah, that's another way to do it. So anyways, if I set transparent to 100%, it will consume the entire screen, and 0%, the black is just going to take over. So what we need is CSS animation. Because we want to animate this, we don't just want this to be normal old thing. Ent, terrible name, I know. 1 second. No. Infinite. Now, in the end, we don't want this to be infinite. We just want to play once. It's play once. But we're going to change that later. So, at keyframes, end. Now, I'm just going to comment this out. And then I'll copy this. Success. Hey. Copy this, and so now CSS animation that in CSS animations there are about 2 different ways you can animate. You can do it using percentages or using this from to syntax. Now the animation is going to go from 0 to 100%. Hey, so if I change this to background to red, the background. So if I change it to background color red, and then I change it to background color blue, and it's going to go from red to blue if this is the time and this is the amount of seconds. I can also set the easing, which I want it to be ease in out. Yikes. Okay, let me set this to white. So, and then I can put anything I want in between. Like, if I want it to be so I'm going to make it so that halfway through the animation, it's going to change the background color to, let's say, red. You get the idea. Now, depending on how closely these things are, so this is, I'll say 0%, 10%, it is going to animate them. The speed of how it's going to transition between these two keyframes depends on how closely they are. For example, it's going to transition from this keyframe to this keyframe very quickly because they're very close together, 0% and 1%. But if this is 0% and 10%, it's going to be a lot slower since they're further away. But if we just use the from to syntax, everything is going to be linear. We must be able to control the speed at which the animation transitions between two keyframes. So yeah, now we saw that out of the way. I'll go to 0%, and I'll copy, paste, the reason why it's doing like this is because we haven't defined an end keyframe yet. There you go. I'm not pulsing anymore. So, in the beginning of the animation, I want the entire screen to be covered up with black. And then I'm going to do this. But there's a problem, you see. It doesn't transition between the two states. Why doesn't it transition between the two states? Well, it doesn't transition between the two states because, well, it doesn't really support that. If we use radial gradients, then you won't be able to transition, or any type of gradients really. So to solve that, the developers of CSS created something called CSS Houdini. So what CSS Houdini is allows us to do like type checking. I'll do property size. Then I can set its initial value. I'll set it to 0%. Initial value to 0%, and then I can set the inherit to false. The initial value is basically just what is the value of this property will be at the beginning when the page loads, and then I can set the syntax to percentage. Now this syntax is basically does type checking. So, like, if we use the size property and use the animation on this, it is going to work. Since yeah, let me just demonstrate it. So, instead of doing all this, we can instead change this to var -- size and then remove these. Now it's kind of just consumed the whole screen. How creepy. So now for the 0%, I can, instead of doing stuff, I could just set the size value to like 0%. And for the 100%, I could set the size value to 100%. Now you see it can transition smoothly. But why can it transition smoothly? Well, because it does type checking. since the CSS, since it knows that this size value is a percentage, it knows how to transition between these two states. Since it knows that it's percentage, so like the keyframes will be in between would be like size 50%, size 60%. It will know how to transition between these two states. It'll be like 0%, 10%, 20%, 50%, 100%. Yeah. Now, this is cool, but we don't want it to be like this. We want it to be a bit more explodey. So at 10%, I'll set the size to like 3%. 3%. No, 6%. We want to overshoot. Then 20%. I'll set the size to 3%. And then at 50%, I'll set the size to 3% again. And then at 60%, I'll set the size to 1%. We've got this cool animation, you know, like the circle pops up and then it consumes the entirety of the screen. I'll change this to 5%. Now, this animation is repeating forever. Doesn't really make it a page entering animation since it just repeats forever, and that's annoying. So I will remove this infinite. But you see that when the animation ends, it just returns back to frame 0 again. Well, that's because we have to set the animation fill mode to forward, which basically means that once the animation ends, it basically means that once the animation ends, it is going to keep it, you know, it is going to keep its state. It's going to be like how it is when it's ended. So yeah, problem solved. But we cannot interact with any of these. Why? Well, all we really did was set our, you know, the black thing. All we really did was set this to transparent. We didn't actually remove it from the scene. We didn't actually remove this from the scene. So it is still covering everything, so we can't interact with anything. For that, there's the pointer event. The pointer event, it basically makes it so that you'll be able to choose how to interact with the mouse. There we go. This pointer event none basically makes it so that this thing, it is not going to, this entering animation, it is not going to affect the mouse. So the mouse is just going to ignore this. So be able to interact with everything else. Go to space. And one more thing. If you want to do this, you know, entering animation, if you want to do it in this way, then you have to use, then CSS Houdini will have to support your browser. So we can write, is Houdini ready yet? And I'll go to is Houdini ready yet? And then it will show what browser supports CSS Houdini. So your browser has to support the properties and values API if you want to make this animation in this way Of course, there are other ways to make it, but I just find this way to be more efficient. So, yeah, if you want to do this animation, then you most likely have to do it in Google in any of these browsers. So anyways, that's it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel ObaCode. Bye.